Story 1. It was my first week as a lifeguard at Splash Park, and I was still learning from a coworker named Chad. I was supposed to watch him at the Wavemaker for a few days before moving on to other rides. The first 2 days were fine. On the third day, Chad and I went to the wave pool before the park opened. After a few hours, people started arriving and filled the pool. The waves were crashing, and everyone was enjoying the cool water under the hot sun. Chad was explaining the policies and how to operate the wave machine when suddenly we heard someone yell, "Someone is drowning!" We both turned toward the sound, and Chad blew his whistle, telling everyone to get out of the water. My heart was racing as I helped direct people out. A wave of panic hit the crowd, and they quickly scrambled out of the pool. From our spot, I saw Chad dive into the pool with urgency. Moments later, he came up with a small, lifeless boy. The boy's skin was pale, and it looked like he had been underwater for a while. His parents came running, the mother crying loudly. Chad tried CPR, but the boy stayed lifeless. EMS quickly show up and attempted to save the boy. After several attempts, they quickly rushed him to the ambulance and took him away. We ended up closing the Wavemaker for the remaining of the day. Shortly after the incident, Chad and I were called to go into the manager's office to give the report. We went and gave our manager and the police officer a detailed story of what happened. We also had to provide them a written report. I could see Chad's hands were shaking from the incident when he was writing down his report, and I knew he was scared. After my shift, I couldn't stop thinking about the boy's colorless face. My drive home was silent, and I couldn't get the incident out of my mind. That night, I had a hard time falling asleep, but when I finally knocked out, I had a dream of being at work. The park was closing, so my manager told me to do a sweep to make sure everyone was out of the park. When I got to the Wavemaker, I decided to take off my shoe and dip my feet into the water. I can see the water rippled, and within 5 feet away, I saw a figure of the little boy, his eyes open and staring at me. A cold hand gripped my ankle, and a voice in my head said, "Help me." I then saw shadows pulling the little boy deeper into the Wavemaker. I screamed for help and woke up gasping for air. It was 4 a.m, and I couldn't go back to sleep for the rest of the night. Since that day, not a single day at work goes by without that incident crossing my mind. I began to question myself if the water park was haunted. Was the little boy's soul taken by some mysterious being? Is his soul stuck in there? What if there was a reason for his death? I then eventually started to question myself if this job was the right fit for me. After a month, I was offered another job at the local Walmart and decided to give my 2-week notice with Splash Park. I felt traumatized and felt that I would be better off if I left that job. The next few years went by quickly, and the incident has stopped bothering me and had slowly disappeared from my head. It was not until I ran into Chad while shopping at a grocery store. He was working as an assistant manager there. We had a quick chat, and he told me the water park had closed down due to too many deaths and had been cited too many times. The news brought back memories of that tragic week and the haunting dream I had, a reminder of the innocent life lost and the traumatizing impact it had on me and those involved. Maybe there was really something haunting in that Wavemaker that is taking life away. Anyhow, now that the park is closed once and for all, at least no life will have to be taken away by it again. Story 2. When I was 19, I moved from California to Colorado to pursue a degree in business management. Living alone in a small apartment, I balanced my studies with a security job at night. I worked as a security for 2.5 years, until one evening, something truly unsettling happened that I'll never forget. That particular night, I arrived at work around 8 p.m., ready to start my shift. Our security team had 5 members, but one called in sick, so we had to split the shifts. I volunteered to cover an extra site, a water park about 30 minutes away from our headquarters. Upon arriving, the park was closing, with only a few stragglers left. I headed to the monitoring room, checked the cameras, and waited for everyone to leave before starting my rounds. With my flashlight cutting through the darkness, I began patrolling the park, feeling comfortable despite the eerie silence. Then I heard a splash near the kiddie park area. Thinking it might be ducks I'd seen earlier, I walked over to check. As I approached, I saw a ghostly figure floating above the water. It looked like a woman searching for something or someone. Frozen in shock, I finally mustered the courage to shine my light on it and shouted, "Security! Park is closed. You can't be here." Instantly, the figure vanished into thin air. Terrified, I ran back to the monitoring room and called my manager, who advised me to stay put for another hour. Shaken, I spent the rest of the time in the office. Out of curiosity, I reviewed the camera footage of the kiddie park. The footage showed me pointing my flashlight and shouting, but there was no figure. The next day at work, my coworkers and I discussed the incident. The coworker who had called in sick approached me with a shocking expression. He told me he had never experienced anything like that during his shift there before. But he did hear of a tragic story about a child who had an accident involving the kiddie slide at that water park decades ago. Maybe that ghostly figure may be a guardian of that child that may have passed on, and maybe he or she is looking for the child. There has also been rumor of sightings of a woman in a white dress wandering the kiddie area, although there has been no proof. For the next few weeks, we doubled up on security at that location until things settled down. After finishing college, I moved back to California with my parents, but this eerie experience in Colorado remains one of the stories I'll always tell. Story 3. I've been the general manager at Sunny Shores Water Park for several years now. During the day, the park is filled with laughter, excitement, splash, but as the sun sets, an eerie calm settles over the place. Being one of the last to leave each night, I've experienced my fair share of unusual sights and sounds that linger long after the park gates close. It was a late summer evening, and the park had shut down for the day. I stayed back to finish some paperwork and was the only one left. I usually put on some music on my phone to keep the silence away and help keeps my mind off of things. Our office was a good walk away from the entrance of the water park, so we have to walk a good couple of minutes passing multiple attractions to get to the entrance. I finished my paperwork, packed my bags, and walked towards the exit, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the empty pathways. That's when I heard it. A faint giggle, barely audible, coming from the kids' pool area. I stopped, my heart quickening. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was just the echo of my thoughts. But as I continued walking, the giggle grew louder, joined by the unmistakable sound of splashing water. These were not the innocent sounds of animals. This was different, eerily human. Drawn by an uneasy curiosity, I turned to the kiddie pool. The dim lights cast long, dancing shadows across the water. The giggles turned into whispers, but when I strained to hear, the words were indecipherable, almost like a forgotten language. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky and uncertain. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Just as I turned to leave, I heard a splash, the sound of someone diving into the water. I whipped around, but the pool was empty, save for the ripples spreading across the surface. I didn't dare to investigate any further and made my way quickly out of the park. Night after night, the disturbances continued. The security footage showed nothing out of the ordinary, yet every evening I heard the giggles, whispers, and splashes. Sometimes I caught glimpses of shadows moving behind the water slides, or figures standing by the pool, vanishing the moment I tried to get closer. One particularly late night before I was going to leave the park, a mix of fear and resolve pushed me to confront these unseen visitors. I placed a notebook with a pen on one of the beach chairs. I whispered into the empty night, "If you're here, show me." Hair was sticking out of my forearm as I whispered those words. I was getting goosebumps, but I try not to scare myself. I walked back to the office to pack my things. After I packed my belongings, I went back to where I left the notebook. When I got there, there was nothing. The notebook was untouched and looked exactly like how I left it 15 minutes ago. I grabbed the notebook and pen and looked around. Right before I was going to walk away, I noticed children's footprints around the beach chair where I left the note. It was like someone was running and playing around the beach chair. That sent a chill down my bone, and I can feel the goosebump flowing through my body. I didn't want to show that I was scared, so I just pretend nothing happened and left the park.